So you don't think that people deserve the right to bodily autonomy?
No.
What makes someone deserve the right to bodily autonomy?
Well, when you say bodily autonomy, would you agree then that a fetus has bodily autonomy?
I'm talking right now about human beings.
Well, I consider those human beings, though.
I'm talking right now about people who can talk and walk, who are independent, singular organisms.
So people who are in comas, they have no rights?
Dude, you keep doing comas and prisoners and fetuses. Just talk about a fucking person. What about
that
you
is a
and
person.
me? Just talk about a person who is not an exception, who is not in a medical state of physical...
Yeah, but what we're trying to determine right now is the worldview. You say people deserve to have bodily autonomy. And then you give me the criteria for bodily autonomy, and then I can instantly point to an example where you agree
That's not what we're trying to do. What you're trying to do
What am I trying
is
to
create
do?
a gotcha so you don't have to answer the genuine question that I'm asking.
What's the
you.
genuine question you're asking?
The question is, do people, regardless of outliers, does the average person who has not committed a crime, who is not inside of another person, who is not brain dead or in a coma, deserve bodily autonomy?
Depending on what you mean by that.
Bodily autonomy being defined as the ability to choose what you do with your body so long as you are not threatening other people's bodily autonomy.
No.
Why not?
Because I would say that things like laws against unaliving yourself would be completely appropriate and things like this, which would be a violation of your bodily autonomy by your criteria.
So you think that because people can't unalive themselves?
No, I'm saying you gave me the criteria for what bodily autonomy means, right? You asked me what an objection would be against it, and I just gave you one.
Okay, so let's cut out that outlier. Do you think that people who are not inside another person, who have not committed a violent crime against themselves or others, and who are not currently brain dead and are conscious and capable of perceiving the world, do you think that those people deserve bodily autonomy?
No, based on the
Why
example
not?
I just gave you.
Just because people have the capacity to unalive themselves, no one deserves bodily autonomy.
By the definition that you just gave, we could not give them bodily autonomy definitionally by that definition because...
Definitionally by that definition?
Definitionally by that definition, yes. So I could say definitionally by some other definition, but I'm giving you the referent to your definition.
We don't deserve bodily autonomy.
Not by your definition, because that would prevent us from preventing people from like doing suicide and things like this.
So we don't deserve bodily autonomy because under my definition of bodily autonomy, we cannot prevent someone from killing themselves?
Correct.
But that's not a violent act. Like, why can't,
that's a real violent act.
Why can't, under my definition, you can't prevent someone from killing themselves?
Because it would violate your rule for what bodily autonomy is.
I said so long as you are not a threat to yourself or others. So that includes you. So you would relinquish your bodily autonomy if you were a threat to yourself.
Then I think that it would then just be trivially true that you don't really mean bodily autonomy anymore, because what you do is you say bodily autonomy with all of these exceptions where we can violate bodily autonomy.
But that's like 3 exceptions. It's exceptions that...
It's not like 3 exceptions.
exist.
It's many exceptions. What about somebody who's just like cutting themselves with a razor blade? Can we stop them? What about a person who just says that they want to cut off their right arm because they think it'll be fun? Can we stop them? Like, there's so many examples I can give you of where we would violate people's bodily autonomy. What about a person who's having like a manic episode and doesn't want to go to the hospital? Can we violate their bodily autonomy?
Well, they're a threat to themselves or others. So again, that would fall in there.
What if they're not a threat? What if they're just having like a manic episode? They don't want to leave their house. You just perceive it that way.
That happens all the time. Those are
Exactly.
homeless people,
So
and they do
we
have
violate that whatever you consider by your definition bodily autonomy. When you say people deserve that, and I say absolutely not by that definition, because I can point to 300 different reasons why we would need to violate it.
So is there any definition of bodily autonomy that you think that
Not that I'm
human
aware
being-
of. I'm not aware of a definition of bodily autonomy I would agree to that I wouldn't think we should be able to violate.
So you don't think that people should have the ability to control themselves and their bodies under any circumstance because
I didn't say under any circumstance.
So what's the circumstance in which people should have the right to control their body?
Yeah, so, well, for me, I would say that if it's in some type of case of will, that you could do that. But I mean, ultimately,
You mean
I
like
think
free will?
Yeah, no, in case of will. So I'm not sure that I believe in some universalized right for bodily autonomy, and you haven't really given me any definitional reason why I should.
But
here.
I don't understand why you don't believe in bodily autonomy. Why don't
because
you believe in bodily?
my
why don't
understanding
people
of
have
what
the right to
bodily
control themselves?
autonomy is that you basically have the right to do whatever you want, absent the infringement of somebody else's bodily autonomy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Why don't you think people should
Because
have the right
I
to do
think that I need to many times infringe on people's bodily autonomy for their good or societies.
that? Why are you constantly infringing on other people's bodily autonomy? What are you up to?
What do you mean?
What you just said. I feel the need to.
Yeah, well, I would use force doctrine for that, meaning voting, things
So
like that,
when
to
do you,
violate
when
bodily
are you
autonomy.
when are you forcing
When I
yourself
go
onto
vote.
others to bodily?
I'm forcing my will when I go vote on other people through force doctrine.
No, you're not, because they all have a vote.
Great. Can I vote
mean,
it?
not according
Okay.
to you, but
I can vote and you can vote, right?
yes,
Okay, you want abortions to be legal?
yes,
If I vote against that, am I voting against your bodily autonomy?
yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Can we move on now?
No, we can't move on now.
No,
because
we
you still
can't move on.
haven't
Okay.
Well, Andrew, you still haven't explained why humans don't deserve bodily autonomy. Like, what are
I
you
just
saying?
explained it to you.
So then, should control people?
Well, in this case, we would use groupings of laws under. From my view, it would be like Christian ethics. From your view, it would be like, I don't know, shared bizarre intuitions or whatever, where you think that I don't know. Well, I don't know where
Why
it
are
is that
guessing
you
what I believe. Stop
do.
it.
You believe in God?
I'm on the fence about
Then
it.
it's just intuition. So everything that you believe is probably just
So
intuition.
you believe? Well, I mean, there's also facts and like physical evidence, but you know. So you believe
Facts and physical evidence require an interpreter, right?
like eyes and ears.
They
and a brain?
require you to interpret them.
So you're saying that facts are different for everyone, regardless of how they interpret.
Well, they require an interpreter, and the interpreter can interpret them however they choose, and then can make moral prescriptions based on those. But when we get to the moral prescriptions,
Facts don't change based on your.
but your
personal
moral
perspective.
prescriptions based on the facts do. That's
Okay,
why
sure.
they require interpreters. So I'm not really willing to kind of seed the
Every
ground.
fact, but you are
Yeah.
your own personal interpreter now.
Yeah, I interpret things correct. Yeah.
Yes, okay, and so do I. That's
Yeah, I
how
know, but I
facts
just
work.
don't-
We
I-
all see
but I-
facts, and then we make
Yeah,
our
right,
own
but I
conscious
haven't-
judgments about those facts.
Right, but I have an
based on
epistemic
how our brains work.
foundation that I appeal to for foundational morals. You don't. You would
So
just
you think
appeal
that
to
everyone should
intuition.
have to subscribe to the Christian God, and that is who decides who has free will?
I think that Christian ethics, if we inform law, it's a way better system than any form of law we have currently. Yes.
But why does that relinquish people's free will? I'm confused as to what that.
We're
has
not
to do with
even.
bodily-
We weren't talking about free will.
Okay, so then what?
We're talking about bodily autonomy now.
Okay, so then based on
Your definition of bodily autonomy,
Yes.
the one that you gave me,
Sure.
we would definitely need to violate it, and you even agree to that. So
in what? Just for abortion or what?
no, for the purpose of like side, cutting yourself with razor blades, all sorts of various things that you could do to yourself for self that we would step in and violate your bodily autonomy over.
Okay, so outside of those specific examples in which someone is committing an act of harm, which I also removed from my definition of bodily
Then I
autonomy.
don't consider that bodily autonomy anymore by your definition.